Hey Ian, do some trig graphing here. This is the page 300 assignment that you let me know you had. So we're graphing some sine functions and cosine functions. So the basic sine function starts at 0, 0. It's a wave. All right, it's a wave, sine wave. Some people call it, and the regular amplitude is it goes up to +1 and then down to -1. It's kind of good to know where it passes through the x-axis, but sine of 0 is 0. So it does have its start at 0, 0. And I like to graph it to the right and then kind of flow it to the left. So we know it's going to go through 0, 0. We're going to make this, we'll make this 1, 2. Sorry, these are -1, -2. We'll make this go down to -4. And 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to make this amplitude. The reason we're going up to 4 is because of the second graph you got to do on this one. But it's another sine graph. But the -4 in front is going to flip it over, top to bottom, and then it's going to make it 4 times taller because of that 4 there. Increases the amplitude. But anyway. At pi/2 is when it reaches its height of 1. So this is where it's going to peak out. And then at pi, it's going to go through 0. And then at 3pi/2, it's going to be at -1. And then at 2pi, it's going to be back to 0. So this is one period on the right side of the graph. All right, it goes up and then it goes down. Now it's going to make that same period on the left side of the graph. At -pi/2, it's going to be at -1. At -pi, it's going to be at 0. At 3pi/2, it's going to be up at +1. And at 2pi, it's going to be back to 0. So this is another period up and on the left side of the graph. All right. So at every pi/2, it has kind of a cool looking point, either at 1, -1, or 0. Now the second graph, the -4 sine x, this one is going to be a little bit wilder because it's going to go to the top, but it's going to flip. Instead of going up first, it is going to go through 0, 0. I'm going to do this one in green. All right, it is going to go through 0, 0, but then it's going to go down to -4. So it's going to go all the way down here at pi/2, and then it's going to come back up to 0 at pi. And then at 3pi/2, it's going to be all the way up at +4. And then at 2pi, it's going to be coming back to 0. So this is kind of the right side of this one. It's going to come way down to -4 and then flow way back up. And you can check these on Desmos too. Whoops. All right, so that's the right side period. Left side period is going to do the same thing, except at -pi/2, it's going to be way up at +4. Then it's going to come down through 0. And then at 3pi/2, it's going to be at -4. And then at 2pi, it's going to be at 0. So kind of get those important points there and then kind of flow your wave in. All right, there's question 33. All right, the sine graph and then -4 sine x. So that's Merry Christmas. Looking good. All right, next, just some more graphs here today. 43, 3 sine x, okay? So 3 sine x, that 3 means it's going to go up to 3. That increases the amplitude. So that's why I put it up to 3 here. 1, 2, 3. And down to 3. 1, 2, 3, and 1. And it's a sine graph again, so it is going to go through 0, 0. I always like to know what it's doing at 0, just to know. The cosine graph is not, excuse me, we'll see cosine here in a second. But anyway, so we know it's going to go through 0, 0. We're going to make some tick marks. Here's pi/2, tick, tick, whoops, 3pi/2, and 2pi. All right, then we'll do the same thing across the back side. -pi, -pi/2, and tick, tick, -2pi, and -3pi/2. The standard trig graphs, the sine and cosine, have an amplitude, a period of 2pi. So that's why we just go over 2pi, because think 2pi is just one rotation around the circle. Okay, so anyway, it goes through 0, 0. Now it's going to go up to 3. Whoops, I don't know why I put that. That should be a 1, a 2, and a 3. It's going to go up to 3 here. This is going to look a little bit like the red one, but it's going to go up to 3. All right, it's going to go up to 3, and then down to 0, and then down to -3, and then up to 0. So this is going to be the right side. It's a little bit, tall like that 4 one was, but it's not, doesn't have a negative, so it starts going positive. Now at -pi/2, it's going to be down at -3. At -pi, it's going to be at 0. At 3pi/2, it's going to be at +3, and at -2pi, it's going to be 0. So kind of get the wave going over here. And you're done. Okay? There's 2 periods of it. All right? 1, 2. 2 complete motions of it. All right? Now, I'm going to send you my photo of this too, and on the photo, I just graph to the right of the x-axis, so I just graph to the positive side of the y, so you can look at how that compares, but I'm doing positives and negatives here. All right, this 1/4 right here is going to compress this graph. So we had up to 1 and down to -1, we had up to 4 and -4, 3 and -3. This one's going to only go up. This kind of compresses the graph. Okay, so I'm going to make this 1/4, and then 1/2, and then 3/4, and then -1. Sorry, these are all negative. And this will be +1/4, +1/2, +3/4, and +1. Now, this is cosine, so at 0, cosine is equal to 1. But then we have to multiply by 1/4. So at 0, this thing, I'm going to pick a different color here. I'm going to graph this one in orange. At 0, this thing only is up at 1/4. So cosine always starts at 0, up or down. In this case, up. But we're still gonna label this. We're gonna do our pi/2 and our pi, because those still are going to be important points. 3pi/2 and 2pi. Oops. All right, do that same thing to the left side here. So -pi/2, -pi, -3pi/2, and -2pi. So we try to space them out as best we can. -pi and -pi/2. So now what this thing does, it still has flow to it, but it's going to go through 0 at pi/2. And then it's going to be down to -1/4 right here. Then it's going to be up to 0, and then it's going to be up to +1/4 there. So this is how this one flows. It flows this way. But since that 1/4 is in front, it's really flat. It's not, it's a lot flatter. And you can check this on Desmos. So over on the left side, it's going to be at 0 here, and then down to -1/4, then up to 0 here, and then up to +1/4 on this side. So it's going to flow. Down and then up. Oops, that doesn't look very good. You'll get better at drawing your curves in. All right, so that's this one. That 1/4 compresses it. All right, but still goes through 0, 1/4. All right, the last one is another cosine graph, but it's got this x/2. All right, what that x/2 does is it stretches the graph horizontally. So this one's going to go to 1 and -1. So if we make +1 and -1 right there, and it is going to stretch it a little bit. So this is going to be pi, and this is going to be 2pi, and this is going to be 3pi, and this is going to be 4pi. With that 2 right there, I'm not even going to do the pi/2's, okay? So -pi, -2pi, -3pi, and -4pi. Now it is cosine, so at 0, it is going to be up here at 1, okay? But at pi, and it usually cosine at pi is at -1, but here at pi, it's just going to be 0. And then at 2pi, it's going to be at -1, and then at 3pi, it's going to be 0, and then at 4pi, it's going to be +1. And then, so it's going to do this kind of curve here. All right, and then over here, it's going to be 0 here, -1 here, 0 here, +1 there. So it's going to flow that way. All right, so that when they put that number with the x, then it stretches it. All right, that's what I got for